Hey guys, I moved. What do you think? Hello there, I'm Simon. Welcome to my channel. We need to talk. In fact, it's about bleeping time that we talk about J.K. Rowling. For those of you who do not spend half their lives on the nerdy side of the internet, Rowling has shown herself to be problematic, to say the least. I'm not talking about the many post hoc additions she makes to the Potter universe, where she claims she always meant it to be that way, but no one actually believes her. Like wizards relieving themselves where they stood before plumbing came along. That poses more questions than it answers. And it wasn't even necessary. Does she not know the concept of latrines? But that's beside the point, because as I said, that's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is what she's been saying about gender. During the lockdown period, she started mixing up her tweets reacting to kids' art with some tweets that are kinda sorta downright transphobic. Transphobia is derived from the Latin prefix trans and the Greek word phobos. It refers to an irrational fear, antagonism, or hate for transgender, transsexual, or gender non-conforming people. Now, of course, there were signs long before this that Rowling doesn't quite understand what gender and sex actually are, and that she supported people who are rather outspoken about being transphobes. But she has now fully doubled down on it. Now, before I move on, let's make something really clear. Biological sex is real. The thing is that it is often confused with gender, which is different. It's easy to confuse them, but it's still important to make the distinction. Biological sex is what you physically are. And let's be honest, even that is not quite as black and white as it seems. Gender is something mental. It's emotional and psychological. Oh, but don't you dare call it a mental disorder. Don't even think about it. The point is that the two are not the same. So not making that distinction just makes it more confusing than it needs to be. Now, I'm gonna leave some links down below to some videos of people who are much better placed to talk about this stuff than I am. So I'm just gonna try and explain what happened to my understanding. So in her tweets, JKR has outed herself to be what's called a TERF. Now, Rowling herself has since stated that TERF is a slur and that it is an insult. And it does sound kinda insulting, doesn't it? The thing is that it isn't. The term TERF is nothing more and nothing less than a description. It stands for Trans-Exclusionary Radical Feminist. So the term TERF refers to anyone who believes in women's rights, to the degree that they have an aversion to anyone who isn't a woman. And so they are suspicious of people who they don't see as real women, simply because they were born with different genitalia, i.e., because in their eyes, they are really men. The point is that this description applies exactly to Rowling. Now, in her reply, Rowling actually argued that a lot of people being called TERFs aren't even radical feminists. Well, that's not the bad part. The bad part of the acronym is the trans-exclusionary bit. Also, it clearly does apply to her, so I don't know what she's even trying to prove there. She also says that radical feminists aren't trans-exclusionary because they see trans men, so people who are assigned female at birth but are really men, as female. That proves that she just doesn't get it. Because the way I understand it, being trans-inclusionary means that you see trans men as what they are. Men. She posted an essay on her website defending her views. And when you read it, it seems reasonable at first. Like, you can see how she could get to those views. They're still wrong, and they invalidate people's identity and existence, but you can see the thinking that led to it. Again, links below if you want to hear it from the experts. I'll just talk about some of the points. First point I want to talk about is that of the legal definition of sex. My main thought about that is that I'm not entirely sure what the point is of even having a legal definition of sex. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, I am aware that women are, in reality, often vulnerable to discrimination, aggression, etc. And of course, there needs to be some form of protection and prevention from that. What I mean is that by legally defining sex, you're bound to leave out transgender, non-binary or gender non-conforming people somehow. And I'm just not convinced that having a legal definition of sex is that much easier than not having one at all. The only reason I see for having it is medical, but that's, well, medical, not legal. Every reason I can think of is just a symptom of the raging gender inequality we unfortunately still have. So let's just get ourselves some universal equality and get rid of legal sex, because we won't be needing it anymore. I may be missing a bunch of good reasons why I'm wrong here, so let me know down below why getting rid of legal sex is a dumb idea. She also says that she's interested in free speech, and I have to admit, I agree with her there. I think everyone should be allowed to speak their thoughts. But if what you say is plain wrong, and degrades and invalidates people in who they are, then you should expect people to tell you so. Because freedom of speech also goes for them. You may feel threatened by people's speech, but there's an easy solution. Listen. If you actually talk to them and listen to what they have to say, there's a good chance you'll see that it doesn't have to threaten who you are. Trans people existing in no way means cis people don't. Another point I want to touch upon is when she tells us that she has a history of trauma and abuse. Now, that's just terrible. I'm sorry to read that, and I'm not about to make fun of that, because why would I? And I don't want to minimize that. That said, we must also realize that fear is not usually a rational thing, and trauma is even less so. So we should refrain from using it in an argument as big as this. Yes, it is terrible that she had to go through that, and it is to be admired that she wants to use her platform and money to avoid other people from having to go through it in the future. But this is not the way. Rowling has developed a fear of predators, which is no laughing matter. But by using that as an argument against transgenders, she is basically saying that trans women are rapists and predators, which is unfair, untrue, and downright insulting. This is a community that is already very vulnerable, and all they ask is to be accepted for who they are. An argument like this villainizes them and makes it so that they are feared and hated even more. So let's just not do that. The problem is that these arguments are full of rhetoric and fallacies, and I'm honestly not sure whether or not she's aware of it, or that she actually believes them. Like, I can't imagine the author who created Harry freaking Potter to actually believe this BS, to be caught by such fallacies. But it looks like she is, and that sucks. The weird thing is that Harry Potter has taught so many people to love each other and to be accepting of people, despite your differences. And now she's using the platform and the money she got from Harry Potter to invalidate people. How does that make any sense at all? I don't know. I just don't know. It seems to me that Rowling does mean well, but she is just incredibly misinformed. And when this is pointed out to her, instead of actually listening and learning, she doubles down on her fallacies, which is understandable, but extremely toxic. Look, as far as I'm concerned, you can say and believe whatever the bleep you want. But as soon as you start impacting other people's lives, feelings just won't do. And at that point you need the facts. And at this point, Rowling is choosing feelings over facts. To paraphrase a completely different franchise, J.K. Rowling, you are going down a path that I can't follow. So thank you, J.K. Rowling, for everything you have done for our fandom. But your views go against what we as a fandom want to stand for. So I'm afraid we will have to let you go. You're fired. So now what? What does this mean for the fandom? A lot of people feel like they have to leave the fandom because JKR is being transphobic. In their head, Harry Potter just can't be separated from Rowling, which is fair. I mean, she did write it. But it's not the way I see it. The way I see it, Harry Potter doesn't belong to JKR anymore. It belongs to the fans now. The fandom has grown past JK Rowling. This is evident from the many Harry Potter stars and fandom creators who have already distanced themselves from her statements. For me, there's a big difference between enjoying Harry Potter and supporting JKR. You can still read the books, enjoy the story, and take from it what is meaningful to you. Interpret it the way you interpret it. I like the way Rick Riordan, author of the Percy Jackson series, thinks about this. He had an intention when he wrote things, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to interpret it. And if you can support your interpretation with the text, then that interpretation is equally valid. And I think the same can be applicable to pretty much any media, including Harry Potter. You can watch the Harry Potter trilogy, read fan fiction, purchase fan art, make cosplays. You can do all that without supporting JKR in any way. Just don't buy any official merch anymore. I know I won't. Because I love Harry Potter. I really do. But I love the trans and non-binary community more. Because they're real. Harry Potter won't be hurt by not buying official merch anymore. Real people can and will be, if we keep doing it. Support the fandom, not the franchise. Be a fan and support the people who create fan art and fan fiction and all of that stuff. Because it's just celebrating something that has gotten so much bigger and more inclusive than Rowling. But I think that's about all there is to say about that. By me, anyway. So let's do the YouTube thing. You know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, share, etc. And check all the links in the description. Alright, that'll do. This video is long enough as it is. Thanks for watching.